So it's been a couple of days since my last post. A lot has happened. On a positive note, I'm not dead yet. However, I'm in a new predicament now. So yeah, I had to post this as a record of what's happened here. I'll start from where I left off in my previous post. That hideous sound from the front door downstairs didn't let up. I needed to decide whether I'd find somewhere safe to hide within the house or make a run for it while those creatures were preoccupied at the door. Both of those options had downsides. See, if I decided to stay in the house and hide, I'd find myself trapped should they find me. If I decided to run, there's no way of knowing how well they are at tracking or even how many more of them there are outside. I also have no experience shooting a gun, so I felt as though an enclosed environment would give me the best chance of landing a shot should it come to that. But then again, there's no telling whether a bullet would stop them or not. I do have an attic that I hoped would be difficult to reach by those creatures. The opening is in the second bedroom and requires a ladder to get up. Fortunately, I painted that room earlier in the year and borrowed a ladder from my father, which I forgot to return to him. With this plan in my head, I decided to put it into action. I needed to gather food and water before going up there, but I didn't know how much time I had left before they broke through the door and a makeshift barricade. Well, the bottom of the stairs are right by the front door, so if I couldn't get back to the stairs in time, I'd be dead for sure. I grabbed the pistol that had been sitting beside me and bolted downstairs, and then I realized these creatures weren't just bombarding the front door. See, the sound of metal scraping on metal came from windows too. Never had I ever been so thankful that I had security screens, ones that were installed into the windows, but I couldn't imagine they would hold up for much longer. I had no time to screw around. With haste, I headed toward the kitchen. A lot of food was still on the counter from when I was taking stock. I grabbed a couple of shopping bags from the pantry. I scooped whatever I could from the counter and I filled up the bags, not forgetting to grab a can opener. I grabbed it too from the utensil drawer. I predicted all the food that would last me about 2 weeks if I stretched it out, but I didn't have time to gather everything, and I wouldn't be able to make a second trip down here anytime soon. Water was more important anyway. See, without water, I wouldn't last a week. The only thing I could think of was to fill the water bottles I had and hope that they would last me until these creatures moved on. So I rummaged through the cupboards and I found 4 different water bottles of varying sizes. I filled them up at the tap as fast as I could before throwing them in bags with the food. These bags were pretty heavy now. See, I placed the pistol in my waistband and I lifted the bags, running towards the staircase. A loud crash came from the kitchen window behind me. Not like what I'd already been hearing. It sounded like one of them had gotten through the security screen. I didn't have time to look back, and honestly, I was too scared to. Hoping I'd make it in time, I dashed up the stairs as fast as I could, and I ran for the spare bedroom. I slammed the door behind me and quickly locked it. Knowing full well that a thin bedroom door wouldn't stop these things, I dropped the bags, and I grabbed the ladder that was lying on the ground. Lining it up with the attic opening, I climbed up and I moved the panel covering the opening. More loud crashes and heavy footsteps on the wooden floors could be heard from downstairs. There wasn't much time left. I grabbed the bags and lifted them into the attic with all the strength I could muster. And this is when I realized I left my phone in my bedroom. I felt like I needed it in case anybody tried to contact me, but I clearly wasn't in the right state of mind at the time. Without even thinking, I climbed down the ladder away from the safest place that I could hope to be right now, and I swung the door open, about to bolt for my bedroom, stupidly thinking I still had time to spare. The figure I saw at the bottom of the staircase stunned me, and I froze for a second. My mind told me to scream, but it was like I was paralyzed. Nothing came out of my mouth. Its eyes stared wide, the same eyes that I had stared into from the window across the street, and suddenly the figure lunged towards me up the stairs. I snapped out of it. I ran backwards into the spare bedroom, and I slammed the door closed again. The creature made contact with the door, and loud thumps resounded in my ears from the impact. I pounced at the ladder, and I scurried up through the opening. I didn't know how smart they are, but my mind told me I needed to pull the ladder up, or they'd definitely know that I was up here. I leaned over the opening, I reached for the ladder, I grabbed it firmly, I heaved upwards and backwards. This ladder wasn't light, but the adrenaline coursing through my veins must have helped as I pulled it up into the attic. Vicious scratching sounds came from the bedroom door, and just as I placed the panel over the opening, the sound of the door being caved in boomed. I held my breath and I closed my eyes in the dark. I could hear the creature below me scurrying around, destroying everything in the room. It would have torn me apart if it had caught me, I'm sure of that. Soon I could hear the other creatures making their way up the staircase and into the bedroom too. The fact that they had no vocal sound unsettled me, like a silent serial killer with a mask, but I'm not sure I'd rather be listening to whatever visceral sounds they would make if they had mouths. The only thing I could do from here on out was wait. wait until they settled down or lost interest and kept as quiet as possible. I didn't move an inch for a few hours. Continued listening to the rampage happening below me. I had no way of knowing how good their hearing was, and I was in no rush to find out. I silently prayed that my phone would survive the ordeal so I wouldn't be completely isolated if there were a chance of contacting someone, and internally reprimanded myself for being stupid enough to forget it. I had no way of knowing what time it was exactly, but a glimpse of sunlight shone through the small window in the attic, signifying dawn was upon us. I'd survived the night, and for that I was thankful. I could still hear faint sounds coming from the house below, but the rampage had subsided for the most part. As quiet as I could, I grabbed a snack bar out of one of the bags. I drank from one of the bottles I had filled, only now realizing how thirsty I was when the lukewarm water that I'd usually only drink ice cold met my lips. I gulped down half the bottle before I could stop myself. I didn't want to risk going down anytime soon, so I stayed up in the attic for the entire day. I actually felt relatively safe. I assumed they didn't know I was up here since I'm sure they would have joined me by now if they did. But I couldn't stay up here forever. I still needed to get my phone, for obvious reasons. If it hadn't been destroyed yet, that is. I eventually passed out from exhaustion, I think, since I don't remember purposefully laying my head down to rest. Despite waking up knowing that time had definitely passed and having my bladder screaming at me for release. Though there obviously isn't a toilet in the attic, so I'll spare you the details. Needless to say, I remained as quiet as possible. Eventually I realized I could no longer hear any sound coming from the house below. But getting down and back up again wouldn't be a walk in the park, since I'd need to use the ladder again, and staying anywhere else in the house clearly wasn't safe, with what I could only guess was the state of the windows and doors being in shambles. Luckily, though, if the phone had survived, it would only be in the next room over where I'd left it. I decided to wait a few more hours before executing the retrieve and retreat again plan. Slowly, I removed the panel from the attic opening and quietly surveyed the spare room below. Everything looked to have been torn to shreds, and I can only imagine what would have happened had I taken just a few moments too long to get up into the attic. Plus, the room was a mess. There was no sign of the creatures in direct vicinity. I poked my head out further. I peeked towards the bedroom door. Well, what was left of it, at least. Again, no sign of them. Still, I couldn't hear a thing from downstairs, so I quietly moved the ladder and lowered it down slowly. I made sure to hold the pistol tight while climbing down the ladder as light-footed as I could and made my way to the doorway. The bottom of the stairs looked clear too, but I wasn't going to risk going down there right now. I crept towards the open doorway that was once my bedroom door, and I surveyed the room silently, trying to locate my phone. My bed had been turned upwards, and my clothes from the closet that had been hanging neatly were now strewn across the floor with plenty of ferocious slashes through them. Finally, I located my phone. It seemed odd that it was sitting so perfectly on top of my favorite jacket, but I grabbed it, turned it towards the doorway, and that's when I saw the creature rise onto two legs through my balcony window. Like it had been waiting for me in a crouched position. And once again, the creature stared at me for a moment with its deep, sunken, white eyes, but without thinking, I aimed the pistol at the creature and I pulled the trigger. The sound of the glass shattering made a deafening sound, and I fell backwards. I didn't know if I'd hit the creature or not, but I needed to get back to the attic now if I had any chance of getting out of there unscathed. The sound of the gun would surely alert others. I knew this, so I immediately got to my feet and I started back towards the attic opening. I glanced at where the creature had been a second ago, but it wasn't there anymore. Assuming I'd hit it, I made my way back to the spare room and hurried up the ladder with my phone in my back pocket. The sound of the creatures galloping up the stairs surprised me, and I glanced toward the staircase for the open doorway. They saw me this time. I hurtled back up into the attic and kicked the ladder out from under myself. I quickly moved the panel back over the opening and threw the heavy bags on top of it, hoping to weigh it down. Immediately, the pounding began. Pulling my phone out of my back pocket, I unlocked the screen. Another emergency alert flashed on the screen. It said, "Seek nearest bomb shelter immediately. Saturation bombing inbound ETA. 1500, 3 p.m. The clock on my phone showed the time as 12:30 p.m. If you're reading this now, please respond. Hey there kids, and happy holidays. It's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I just wanted to tell you guys thank you for watching tonight's video. If you enjoy watching videos here on YouTube, then you should check out the MrCreepyPasta Storytime podcast, which is available on Spotify and on iTunes and on Google Play and everywhere like that. If you enjoy listening to MrCreepyPasta's Storytime podcast, you'll enjoy watching it on YouTube because it's the same show. You guys are both hearing the exact same thing at the exact same time. Also, thank you guys for supporting me on Patreon or on Popbase. You guys who are the top supporters on Patreon especially, thank you so much. Like Joey Gilbert, Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Wayne Milstead, Chambinski, Ken Lando Higuchi, Brianna Tine-Janzen, Stephen Van Huss, Tristan Pelton, G Weevil 3, Diana Kraus, Asia, The Red Oak Shield Virus, Sandy Barney, Nico Kyle, Caleb Dougal, Daniel Paulson, Dante Rao, Last Blade Song, The Ginger Bros, Don Muemeister, Eliminator 86, Nubsky, Finley E. Hopkins, Steampunk Sinner, Rafael Rodriguez, Optimistic Avocado, and Dr. Strawberry. Everyone there, as well as in the description down below. Thank you guys so much. If you'd like to also follow me on Popbase, where you can get a couple of different updates here and there and play games along with me, then you can do so on your phone. It's on Android and on Apple. And if you guys are looking for something like a hot beverage, such as, say, a tea for the cold winter months, then my wife is still selling teas over at etsy.com/shop/ivorymonocle tea, including a MrCreepyPasta tee that has me on it dabbing. Don't actually, if you do order that tea, request that sticker because we made it, but she didn't want me to put it on the tea because she said it wasn't professional. I think it's whatever. Check back throughout the entirety of the holiday season for more horror stories every single day. Forever. Sweet dreams, kids.